like I'm almost 16 years now in the RE in this industry. Main focus is on solar, and I've come quite a bit around in Asia, especially from Vietnam, Philippines, Thailand, especially went to most of the markets when they had just before, always I would say the gold solar rush came to their countries, and then moved to the next one. I haven't really seen yet the solar gold rush in Malaysia yet, but there is a gold rush, but it's a bit slower than in all the other Asian countries. So for Petronas is basically, and maybe and just to add on this, that Petronas is basically, as you know, it's a progressive energy and solution partner, and we basically enriching lives for a sustainable future. And lately Petronas committed to achieve zero net CO2 emission by 2050. So the new clean energy solution entity CES, which has been announced by our president, which will be put into place by June this year, will basically drive these activities, and this will include also not only RE, the renewables with solar and wind, but also hydrogen and green mobility. So this will be basically drive our transitions. And also one of our subsidiaries in India, which is Empla Solar, and together with Petronas Power in Malaysia, we have developed so far already 1.1 gigawatt of solar projects. And I think we are driving and would like to be one of the main drivers also here in Malaysia to drive further developments in Malaysia especially. Yeah. So that's maybe
Great.
for a short introduction from my end.
That's fantastic, and thanks. It was good also to highlight Petronas, the role that Petronas is playing, as you said, in Malaysia, and otherwise really at the forefront. Petronas New Energy is really at the forefront of the transition there. So thank you. We'll look forward to hearing more from you. Then maybe, Gan, can you talk a bit about your role with Leader Energy or elsewhere?
Okay, thank you, Jack. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Energy Box and Jessica, for organizing this event and inviting me as one of the panelists. I am Gan. I have been involved in the power industry in Malaysia for the last 40 years. I started in Malaysia when Malaysia was only having a maximum demand of about 3,000 megawatt. And then since then, and heavily depend on oil. Since then, I have seen how they evolve from oil to gas to coal, and then now moving into solar. Similarly, I have been involved in Leader Energy. Leader Energy for the last 12, 13 years. Leader Energy, like TMB, also started as heavy fuel oil. And then from there, we went on to building transmission line, coal-fired power plants. And now we are focusing very much only in renewable energy, in terms of solar, in terms of wind power. But I'm focusing into the region. Currently, I have large-scale solar farms in Malaysia, in Taiwan, in Vietnam. We have CNI rooftop in Thailand, in Indonesia, Singapore, and a few other countries as well. So I'm happy to share some of the experiences that from the transition from where the heavy fuel oils to gas, to coal, and then now to renewable energy. Happy to be in the panel.
Great, thank you. And maybe Davis, if you could wrap up the introductions then, please.
Hi, thanks, Jack. Of course, it's my pleasure and it's my honor to be able to be sitting in the same panelists like Mr. Gan and Kai, that they have a regional view, I think, for renewable energy expansions. And with my positions as MPIA president, I work a lot with authorities in Malaysia. And Solarvest being one of the early player during FIT time, we know how difficult that time to tell people how renewable energy or solar energy works in Malaysia, starting from a small rooftop for residentials. Then we start to introduce to all the commercial industrial player with FIT, then go on with NEM and LSS. And looking at the progress that we have made for the last 10 years, surely it is something that I think is something to be proud of for Malaysian government and also the community in Malaysia, how we get to have a transition from completely coal, all the fossil energy to 23% of renewable energy with the large hydro right now. We're happy to say it. Like I always quoted this in the past in all the seminars that I involved. Malaysia in Southeast Asia country that develop renewable energy, we are always slow and steady, consistent. I will say in another way is a reliable country that we consistently developing, but it's a bit slow compared to our peer country in Southeast Asia. Some of the players, some of the investors like Malaysia because it's consistent. The PPA is quite bankable. You know, the regulation is quite clear. So they are here to invest for long term. And being one of the player in Malaysia that doing EPCC, and also we start to develop projects in Malaysia particularly, and we start to involve a little bit in overseas right now. We see the pro and cons of Malaysia. And what we see the good side of the policy here, it is LSS is quite consistent, and we are working with authorities with a lot of other options right now. But we do want to see we can move a bit faster. Example on the TPA or VPPA policy. Example on the battery storage deployment. And I think this is the next step and next breakthrough that all of the renewable energy player and authority need to break through in Malaysia to build it another level for Malaysia.
Great, thank you very much. Really good introductions from everybody, and I think it really does underline sort of what I had said at the beginning, that this is a fantastic panel with great exposure to really all aspects of this topic. So very happy to start digging in a little bit. So what I'm going to do for the next question is, again, to start very much at the high level, start with energy transition at a global level and move to Myanmar. And for this question, I'll work through the same order of participants, then we'll shake things up a little bit on the panel. So I'll start with Kai and then work through the same order. But we've obviously hopefully coming to near the end of the COVID pandemic phase, and hopefully able to look forward to a new future, whether it's a new normal, an old normal, but there actually seems to be almost no normal now with various things going on in the world. And we're seeing some shakeups around prices that, obviously there's a commodity cycle, there's difficulties in transportation. We've seen increases in oil and gas prices, but still a stronger commitment going forward to the energy transition globally. So what I wanted to ask each of the panelists is, so how do you view the big picture macro global issues? Are they positive? Are they negative? Are they helping you to move forward? And then really specifically, does that have an influence on the Malaysian market? So again, May, I'll start with Kai in this. If you could kick us off on the energy transition.
Yeah, I think in general, the global demand of renewables, especially on solar, is on a new time high. Or you can almost say no all-time high, but if you look into the numbers which are basically, let's say last year was around installed globally around 184 gigawatt roughly in this estimate, and this year is to be estimated that this number will grow to cumulative of 245 gigawatt to be installed. That shows already and it is a much steeper growth to just the 10 previous years in overall, and that is despite the spiking raw material prices and therefore also the increasing turnkey project cost prices. I believe many of our players in Malaysia have, and also investors have seen this in the project, especially the EPC players were hit quite hard by that, and also I would think the forecast looks not very promising, especially if you talk about the major components like the predicted polysilicon, right? So there are warnings in the, or not warnings, but announcements in the market, which looks like that this is not something which will overcome by 2022. It's rather like we're looking maybe on a higher side until the next, up to, in the worst case, up to the next 5 years, which will surely slow down a bit of the development in overall. but I don't think that will stop the overall growth in solar, because the cost prices we see nowadays, especially on the C&I sector, but even let's say on the large scale, solar can be very competitive compared to some market prices. And here, especially the largest markets is by far China, US, and India. But with the recent trend in the Russian and Ukrainian conflict and soaring energy prices in Europe, we might see Europe soon to be back on the top list as well, because a lot of company countries are looking really heavily now into establishing better policies and making easier development regulations in Europe as well. Yeah, so that's what I think impact wise, it would be rather more on a cost impact, but I would not see that will hinder the overall growth in Malaysia.
Great, thank you. Exactly what I was looking for. A very good, concise answer. Thank you. And then Gan, what are your views on this subject?
Okay, as Jack just said, there is a slowdown a little bit of the development of solar in the last 1 or 2 years, partly due to the COVID pandemic, partly also due to the increase of the module prices and the raw materials. And also some countries like one of the biggest market of solar now is Vietnam. Vietnam has slowed down since end of 2020. Because there is also due to reduced demand, and also I think there's a slight overplanting of solar palm farm in Vietnam. Malaysia is mainly C&I that we can see still growing. Large scale solar since the last LSS4 tender, which is quite at a very competitive price, but due to the increase of raw material and increase in the solar module prices, I think some developers are struggling trying to have financial close on the projects. But going forward, definitely with the improvement in the efficiency of the solar modules, and we are also getting bigger capacity solar panels, and hopefully with that advancement in the technology, and also with the increasing popularity of the storage coming in, that definitely have a better future for the solar industries. But of course, very much we still need the support of the government policy. There are a lot of things that still Malaysia government can do, but maybe the later part of the day we can discuss further on what are the policies that Malaysian government can do to help the solar industry in Malaysia. But definitely compared to the region, as David said, Malaysia is a slow and steady. But if you compare to country like Vietnam or even to Philippines, Malaysia, I think is a little bit slower compared to the other countries. And Singapore, especially in the last few months, if you see due to the increase in the oil prices, the electricity tariff has gone up so fast, so high, that now developers in Singapore, where we have the operation there, customers are calling up. Actually, instead of us going out to looking for potential customer are calling up and say, hey, I want to install solar panel on my rooftop. Rather than we go and chase a customer, it's the other way around now. But I believe that is still C&I rooftop is still one of the biggest potential for the region in the short time. That's my view in this area.
Great, fantastic, thank you. So I think so far we have two cautiously positive views. Davis, maybe you can chime in and see if you agree.
Yeah, of course, I think we agree on the point really brought up by Mr. Gan on different market. On Malaysia itself, we know that there are limitations with I would say that Malaysia, relatively compared to other countries, we have a low maximum demand. So that's why the development of the RE mix into the existing energy is also has been slower than the other country. But we do hope that the government can actually move faster from in the past 10 years policy making. We do see that how it evolved from FIT time to NEM to LSS, and seems like in this last few years we are stopping from the advancing the policy, adopting battery storage. moving from LSS to NEDA to liberalizations, energy liberalization a little bit. You know, we are okay that if we don't completely open our energy market, but we need to advance from LSS reverse bidding model to give more room, more innovations to the market player to give solutions into the RE. My personal opinion, we have been stopping innovating the policy in the past few years. The last round, we trying to be a bit more creative and to explore in TPA and P2P energy trading. I think it was like before pandemic 3 years ago, and then we hear nothing until now. That's my view on current situation in Malaysia.
Great, thank you. Very good introduction across the board there. So I think what I'm going to do is skip around in the questions a little bit and jump forward to, we had one more question, but jump forward to the policy question. Then I'll get back to what each of you are doing individually, but we have a nice flow at a high level. So what I wanted to do is to take a look at the status of where Malaysia is. I think we've covered that fairly well from a numerical standpoint, but maybe take a look at the overall political country culture of the country, the feeling there, and the policy status. And I think, Gan, you're a long-term expert in this. Would you kick us off by letting us know where you see us being on a policy, from a policy perspective, but also a little bit broader in terms of what's driving things forward?
Okay, Jack, thank you. As I said, the last year solar, we have David just said, currently we have LSS, but the last LSS tender was 2 years ago. Since then, it's been very quiet. We have rooftop, NEM, and then NEDA, but the quota also is quite limited. But going forward, I would think that something that Davis has mentioned just now, corporate PPA, P2P PPA, which is already implemented in a lot of other countries except Malaysia, which we think that that is one big way for Malaysia to move forward, because there is a demand. There are MNC that consumer that are asking for renewable energy, but they do not have space in their vicinity to build solar farm or renewable energy sources. So they would like to buy it from somewhere else. But unfortunately, there is still, there have been plans, there have been talks about it, but it has not really been implemented for the last 2-3 years. This is something that I believe this is something that we should really push for. As I also said, the storage side, the energy storage, there will be some additional incentive from the government, some encouragement and some clear direction. Even green hydrogen, including solar plus hydrogen and areas like EV car charging station and things like that. So we really need government to come up with a very clear policy and guidelines, and maybe some help, some incentive to really kickstart this industry.
Fantastic, very nice summary. Thank you very much for that. And then Davis, anything would you like to add to that overview?
Gan has been always a visionary guy that where we're moving. He has been in a very good view to see how the industry should move. Being one of the key players in Malaysia, we hope that we have more powerhouse like Gan and Kai, and in this year, we're definitely happy. Even Malaysia is quite slow, but we're happy to see on the market side, on the commercial side, on the different big powerhouse like Leader Energy, like PETRONAS Energy, we join different commercial discussion and panel discussion. There are more market demand and commercial pressure to the current policymaker to implement more, to put more aggressive plan into deployment RE or in the energy transitions. So with my IR report just came out in the last few months, I think I saw a lot of private site that they have been following up with the ST, on okay, how can we adopt to this policy, this roadmap? And of course, on MPIA ourselves, we also have a couple of discussions twice, once with ministry and then once with ST to discuss on how can we clarify the roadmap for my IR report. How could we put some of the strategic plan to fit into the policy roadmap. So that's what we are trying to support. But to now, we still see Malaysia that the market is moving faster than the policy. So we hope that we can close the gap.
Good. Well, I think in general, the market moving faster than the policy is a very good thing. So we'll see if everybody else agrees with that. But I do think that's hopefully the way the world is going, and that there are drivers beyond the government. So to me, that's an indication of growth and development. Kai, I know PETRONAS is very close to the policy environment. I know you have views on this. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree definitely with Mr. Gunn and Mr. Davis. I mean, like, it's basically what they say. I can purely underline, and maybe I can add a bit more on the details, what we are really talking about. Like, we are talking about potentially missing regulations. We're talking about unnecessary restrictions we have in the market. Just for maybe to give some examples here on the restrictions we have. We're talking about self-consumption, for example, where we are not allowed to terminate our solar projects higher than 33 kV. That is not permissible. This is like a huge restriction, because you can imagine, like, those who really have a high demand and who would really benefit from solar on the rooftops or in their premises, basically cannot get into this into it. And that is like one big thing which we see. We have, and I think Davis and also I think Mr. Gunn can maybe underline this, what their experience is on this end. But then also it goes to that extent that the solar PV ground mounted solutions are not permissible for NEM, as well as self-consumption. We have not permissible to export RE energy out of Malaysia, 24% limitation of solar penetration into the Malaysia grid, with questionable statements behind. Let's put it this way, which I think from a technical point, there is the technology-wise there would be no constraints. That one I can tell you. I mean, you look just out to Europe. They have at certain points they have solar penetration, RE penetration of 100% to certain days, and the grid is not collapsing. So there's more to it than meets the eye. But that is like just to mention some of the really pain points we are experiencing at the moment, and which definitely need to be addressed.
Fantastic. That's a really great insight. I think for the audience and myself, a lot of people outside can see the regulations, can see the high level, but obviously where the rubber meets the road, there can be a lot of barriers that people don't see. So that was a very, very good insight into that. So thank you very much. So as I said, I'd like to turn now to a little bit more of the nuts and bolts and look at what each of you are doing individually, what you're seeing, what's exciting on the ground. And so maybe this time I'll go forward and start with Davis. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about, say, either what excites you in the Malaysian market, what you think are the biggest things that you'd like to see happen or like to pursue, and then specifically what you're working on now at the moment.
Solarvest is originally from an EPCC background. We did a lot of EPCC project and focused on EPCC in the past 9 years. And it's challenging to sustain your business when the market is quite limited and with a lot of restrictions. So we always need to be innovative within ourselves to expand the value chain. So for us, it's like we are maintaining our positions, our market share in EPCC, and also expand ourselves to become developer. As some of you guys may know, Solarvest has invested, will be investing in a 50 megawatt solar farm in Malaysia for LSS4, and moving into owning utility solar farm and corporate PPA will be part of our directions into asset investment. And we're also going into RE related value chains. Example like moving into EV energy distributions to EV as well. Battery storage business, energy efficient projects. All this to how to build the ecosystem to expand renewable energy benefits. That is what we have been doing in Malaysia. We have been doing, and we are projecting in the next few years that we're gonna get into that. I think to put it in other ways, if it's not a lot of restrictions and capacity limitation in Malaysia, I maybe just focus on renewable energy asset development and also EPCC. But due to the the capacity is quite limited, we need to expand. That's the way how I put it.
Fantastic. Good. That's yeah, very interesting insights. Well, I'll keep kind of walking around the panel and see what else is everyone is doing on that one. Maybe Kai, would you like to take this and give us your
thoughts? For sure. I mean, PETRONAS as a group was actually one of the first who implemented some of the first projects in Malaysia under FID and CNI, which was around 2014 with a 10 megawatt FID project in Gebeng. But then it became for quite some time a bit quiet, I would say. And only in 2018 we picked it up again and established with PETRONAS Power a better establishment and being fully committed to on the new energy and renewable energy side, where we acquired then M+ Solar in India to really aspire not only in Malaysia but also like to grow outside Malaysia, where we focused mainly on CNR and projects basically, and then we started on our own projects in Malaysia we started with CNI projects like the largest self-consumption project we have at the moment is a 8.3 megawatt MMHE, as well as we finalized just recently energized UTP project. So we are focusing pretty much on the CNI sections. That's what it is in Malaysia at the moment. And then also like we're working at the moment on the largest self-consumption, which it will be then the largest in Malaysia up to date, which will be around 44 megawatt in the Pengerang and Johor. Besides this, we are exploring, of course, the LSS, but of course it's quite a challenging market with like a very small quota available. So this is like we would like to extend more. Besides this, we are looking, of course, into other markets. Our ambition is quite big. We are talking about gigawatts. We would like to invest and grow not only in Malaysia, because we don't see the opportunities yet in Malaysia, but it will be as well as in Vietnam, as well as in Australia and India, etc. Yeah. So, and it will be not only on solar, but also in general, it will be a quite well mixed RE portion, including hydrogen and electromobility. And I think especially on hydrogen and electromobility, we will see much more happening over the next couple of months once our new entity is fully established.
Yep. Fantastic. Well, hopefully we'll have to have another webinar then and get some more details on that. But good to have something exciting to look forward to. And then maybe Gan, could you wrap us up on this question?
Okay. Leader Energy is actually a 100% Malaysian-owned company, but we are one of the very few Malaysian companies that started our business outside Malaysia. We were active in Cambodia as the first IPP in Cambodia 27 years ago. And then only about 6-7 years ago, we come back to Malaysia, start developing the solar farms in Malaysia. As both Davis and Jack has said, Kai has said, the market, unfortunately, in Malaysia is quite limited. So apart from the large-scale solars, in the last 1 or 2 years, we are active in the CNI in Malaysia. But I'm more active outside Malaysia, actually. I'm working on a few large-scale solar farms in Vietnam, in Taiwan, and now I'm very active in CNI in Indonesia and Thailand and also Singapore. But apart from solar, we are also active in the small hydros and wind. Similarly with Kai, we are also working on green hydrogen. We are looking in storage. And I am also exploring the market in Australia as well. So we have the flexibility on the regional role. And also a mix of portfolio. But of course, solar is still one of our key focus that we would like to see and grow solar industry in Malaysia.
Great, fantastic. And I think it's one thing we've seen in other countries, that as each country builds its own renewable energy base, they build corporate capabilities. And there are lots of countries now in Thailand, working in Vietnam, Philippines, companies working across the region. So it's really great to see this ASEAN ecosystem of companies and investors.
Just to add to that, Jack, sorry to interrupt. I would like to see further. I would like to see more resources sharing among ASEAN countries, because since, as I said, since I started 40 years ago in this power industry, one of the main topic people have been talking about is the so-called ASEAN grid.
Yep.
But 40 years later, unfortunately, the so-called ASEAN grid has not really been fully implemented. It partially has been implemented here and there, but I think they, like what you have just said, in Europe, there are a big sharing of resources. Hydropower in the north of Sweden is transferred all the way to south of Italy. So I would like to see the similar things happen in ASEAN. I think that is a huge opportunity for ASEAN to do that. You know, there should be a lot of resources sharing. As Kai just said, Malaysian government has come up with a policy forbidding exporting of renewable energy into Singapore. You know, so something like that, I believe the government should really go forward and look into more cooperation rather than restriction.
Yeah, I can only support what Mr. Gunn says here. I think, to be honest, Malaysia could be a power export house if it comes to renewables. If it's into Singapore, if it's up to Thailand, if your regulatories are right, and if you just see it from a geo point of view, right? I mean, like you're talking about maybe a 20, 25, 30 kilometer submarine sea cable compared to like envisions from Australia of how many thousands
sun cable
sun cable of how many 10, 11,000 kilometer, or even the new aspirations in south of Singapore, in Indonesia. So basically the Malaysian neighbors taking it on, while Malaysia is basically taking a step back, and delivering something which is only helping them to create jobs and opportunities, and also experience and knowledge in this new field, which we can hope we can participate as Malaysians. But it could be also good if that would have been happening on our home turf.
Great. Well, thank you. I think that is a very interesting topic, that the ASEAN grid. I agree with Gan. You know, I've been working for several decades here in the region. I know it's been a topic of interest for a long, long time, but we've seen very, very little progress. But I think the examples of Europe, and now I think the nature of renewable energy and the nature of the resources and various uses make it much more compelling than it was in an old fossil fuel environment. So hopefully one of the things that will get supercharged over the next couple of months and years, and as you said, some of the export schemes we're seeing are helping that. But so maybe that will boost the ASEAN grid. So with that, I'd like to turn to some other specific things that we could see in the future. And you know, we've kind of mentioned that Malaysia has been sort of a policy-driven environment. Obviously, the LSS built out the ground mount net energy metering. You know, built out the beginnings of an industrial energy business. But we've also seen other countries. Thailand doesn't have net energy metering. Vietnam sort of backing off of it, and CNI has moved forward. And so, you know, across the region, we're seeing efforts such as, you know, privatized CNI, movement towards beyond solar through RE100, you know, moving towards other things companies can do in terms of heat, in terms of energy storage, in terms of electric vehicles, either public or private, you know, DPPS, carbon credits, carbon trading. So I sort of see a transition from where countries do the easier, the bigger things through policy, but then maybe more entrepreneurs like yourselves have to be more clever and more creative in looking at what the next steps are. Maybe I could walk through the panel if anyone could highlight anything that you see sort of as an optimistic story where, you know, there are more sophisticated sort of second generation or next generation developments happening on the ground. You know, I mean, Kaya, obviously with PETRONAS, you're really at the heart of this. Maybe I could ask you to start this off. I know you've touched on some of these things already, but maybe you could give us a real insight into some of the buds you see that could possibly grow into trees and flowers in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's like the renewable energy industry and overall, I mean, like it's not just basically on limited to solar, right? So or wind. So there's a lot of more to it, which we are exploring, like especially to enhance better services for clients, if it's an industrial client or on the national policy wide. So if this is something like RECs, which potentially provide a certain upsize to a project, and which will be applied. But I can say like RECs gives a little upsize, but it's not really that much yet. So I think that one needs to maybe a bit further explored. Battery storage, if it's behind the meter, abbreviation or peak shaving, is certainly something interesting. The challenge which we see at the moment, and that's where like a lot of R&D goes in at the moment, is like how can we make this also economically, especially if you talk about 24-hour supply. That I think something could be very exciting to see if you go a bit away from the typical material lithium ion which we see at the moment, maybe to other materials, maybe more which are more available in the market and which have a better price tag, because I think we have a lot of RE100 companies who are really willing to pay even the extra amount of money required for like a 24-hour supply or RE supply. But I think there's still a little bit of work needs to be applied to it. And then of course the big question comes in, like how can this overall energy supply chain, maybe coupled with hydrogen, take into place. And I think on the hydrogen we taking emphasizing a lot lately on it. Again, like we have established a team, our hydrogen team, which will drive this. But yeah, there's I think still quite a bit of work needs to be done. But I think we from the renewable energy team as well as our hydrogen team, we're working there very closely hand in hand. And then also like the electromobility, which is starting off noon. Like I said, there will be a couple of announcements coming in the next couple of months, especially on the electromobility side, especially on the hydrogen side. So I think it will be quite exciting times.
Good, fantastic. Thank you very much. Always good to hear optimistic views. How about you, Gan? Do you agree with that? Anything you'd like to add to that?
Okay, with the just recent COP26, after the event, I believe there are more and more awareness of this renewable energy, or the need to actually come up with more program and policies to actually help green the earth, so-called. And ESG also one of the three big letter words that everybody is talking of now. Even in Malaysia, the Bursa Malaysia, ESG reporting has become part of the requirement. So it's getting more and more big corporations are looking more and more into this ESG program, and hopefully with that bring more awareness of more consumers into renewable energy. This actually hope that if we couple with the right policy from the government, that can really drive the industry forwards. Regarding the REC, the Renewable Energy Certificate, unfortunately in Malaysia, if we really compare to our neighbor down south in Singapore, REC is really a big trading business. Currently, one unit of REC certificate in Singapore can go up to more than 50 Sing dollars per unit. Whereas in Malaysia, unfortunately, for the large-scale solar, if you look at the PPA that we signed with the TNB, the green attribute belongs to TNB. The developer does not have the right to the green attribute, so the developers are not able to trade the REC. So that make a Malaysian a little bit restrictive in terms of REC certificate. But of course, going forward, Malaysian government has been talking about carbon tax, carbon trading. I really hope that can be quickly come up with the right framework and quickly come up with the right policies, so that that encourage more and more renewable energy usage in the country. That is my take on that.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank
Jack,
you.
back to you.
Good. Thanks. And then Davis, maybe you could wrap us up on this topic.
Yeah, definitely. I want to add on a little bit of Mr. Gunn comment on that. That the REC, the environmental attributes is the cutting edge of RE. That which is not just the RE renewable energy cost, is the environmental attributes that make the renewable energy more value. That is why I say in the past, the authority side, they did not evolve or did not advance the policy. We agree, like in LSS 1, LSS 2, maybe the environmental attributes should belong to the TMB at that moment, with the tariff price that is still relatively high. But go down to LSS 3 and LSS 4, look at the tariff that is in the competition in the reverse bidding model. If we advance the bidding model, that probably this kind of environmental attributes should actually go to developer or asset owner itself, and to add value to the project investment return. And so on with NEDA, with VPPA model that we roll on, all those environmental attributes should stay with the investor or asset owner. Then it will encourage more and more people to bid or to invest on solar projects, because that's probably the differentiations that it will appreciate over time after 5-10 years, like how the other countries. Currently, REC in Malaysia is probably $1-2, which is relatively low compared to other countries. And we think that we should build the market for carbon business. And then after 5-10 years, this REC value in Malaysia should turn into $10, $20 or $30 per REC with the increased demand. And the increased demand is also from increased industrialization, from better regulations, better increase the GDP as well. That I think is the whole ecosystem, make renewable energy more and more valuable and more interesting.
Great, fantastic. Thank you very much. And I do think we can see now with the prices of LNG and the flexibility of a return to commodity cycles, the stability of renewable energy certainly is an asset in risk reduction and security. We have about 7 minutes left. This has been a really good, wide-ranging conversation. I did also want to thank the audience for submitting a lot of very good questions, and to let you know that we've tried to work those in. Hope we've been able to answer those as well as we possibly can. But I'm sure there are things I've overlooked and missed in this time. What I think I'd like to do is walk through the audience, the panel one final time, give each of you a chance to see if there's anything you'd like to conclude with or anything that I missed, and let you all wrap it up just in the last few minutes we have. So with that, maybe can I start with Kai? Is there anything that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Now, I think in general, be optimistic with the market. So there's a lot of things to do. I mean, like we have to be sabar, how you would nicely say in Malaysia, be patient. But of course, that does not mean we should lay back. So it means we have to strive. I mean, for those from the audience who are really in this business, it doesn't matter if EPC on the development side, be persistent. Engage with your local authorities, ST and SEDA and whoever can help. And I think this is like the regulations and restrictions is only something we can tackle together as an industry. I think in overall, I'm very positive about Malaysia has so much great potential still. I mean, on the C&I sector as well, on the large scale and open access and energy export. I have not written this off, to be honest. I still have good hope that this will happen. And on collaboration level as well. So I mean, like it's like it's a small market, it's a small industry. One have another hand, and we had great engagements also with Solarvest when we developed and the Lotus One project or Tesco project at that time. And so it will be. So there will be helping hand here and there. It's a small industry. It's a small family. And we will drive also here not to have only 24% penetration, but also gain too much higher. So that's maybe my final words to it.
Perfect, fantastic, very very insightful. And let me ask Davis if there's anything you think you'd like to conclude with. Any final remarks?
Yeah, I want to bring up the energy trilemma topics that we're always talking about: sustainability, affordability, and security. So I want to bring up an article that I read from How to Develop RE in the region. So we always claim energy trilemma is a challenge. It's challenging to develop RE in anywhere. So when we categorize that is a challenging topic, then it means something that we can overcome. We should not take this as a restrictions or limitations for us to penetrate more RE into the energies, into the grid, into the energy mix. So this is why I hope that policymakers and authorities that will see energy trilemma as a challenging topic only, but not restrictions.
Great, yeah, thank you. And I know we talked about that a bit in the rehearsal. I'm glad we brought that up, and always a very interesting framework to view the issues through. And so with that, Gan, would you like to give us some concluding remarks, wrap things up, and see if there's anything else that you'd like to add before we move to shut down?
Yeah, thank you, Jack. I echo what Davis had just said. In fact, he took out a lot of words that I was supposed to say. I wanted to say. I'm fully aware of the needs to balance the security and the current contractual commitment to the current IPP in Malaysia. But at the same time, I believe the government should listen more to the industry, have more dialogues with the industry players, and at the same time trying to advance the newer technology, renewable energy, and set up more clear path and policies, and also step forwards. How do we meet the so-called commitment in the COP26 on the carbon neutrality by 2050? And we need to have really concrete plan, roadmap. How do we want to achieve that, rather than just giving a figure saying that we want to achieve net zero by 2050? But how do we do it? I think that is really needed in this country. And as I said again, more responsive, more dialogue, more interaction with the industry player. That is what I hope that Malaysia, and I agree with Kai, Malaysia still have full of potential. We still have a lot of potential area that we can grow. And we are quite optimistic that we should be able to move faster than what we are doing now.
Great,
that's
fantastic.
all.
Good. Well, this has been a wonderful discussion. As I said in the beginning, I was very optimistic about the prospects for what we come up with here, and I've been very happy to hear everything. I'm sure the audience was enjoyed it as well. What I will do is move now to conclude the Malaysia Energy Transition Pathway Possibilities and Challenges session. I did want to thank the audience. As I mentioned, there were a lot of questions that came before the session and came during the session. We've tried to address those in what I think was a very informative and wide-ranging discussion. So I do want to thank all of the panelists as well. Again, extremely engaging, in-depth, on-topic answers. So a real pleasure. I learned a lot. I'm sure the audience did as well. And as I said, I always enjoy working with Jessica and her team at Energy Box. And so thank you for organizing such a good event. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jessica, and thank you again to everybody.
Thank you so much, Jake. I can see your energy. Thank you so much, all of our speakers, for your informative communications and professional skills. And thank you for your audience. Stay with us. And time we have to say goodbye, and please save the date. Our Solar Energy Future, an expo in Malaysia. We are going to upcoming on November 2nd and 2022. And yes, go solar in Malaysia. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you, Jack.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.